Bring the meeting to order. So this is the February 17th, 2022 Traffic Safety Bikeways Pedestrian Committee meeting. The first thing we'll do is approve the minutes from January. Any comments before we get a motion?
I move that the minutes of January 2022 for the Traffic Safety Bikeways Pedestrian Committee be approved as written.
And I'll second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any noes or abstentions?
I will abstain.
Me too, I wasn't here.
And that's okay, Debbie?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Next will be the appearance of interested citizens, and this is a time on the agenda for people to talk about topics that are not on the agenda. Did we have any actually listed?
Oh, well, yeah. Glad you bring it up.
That's okay. You can state your name and your city of residence.
Good evening, I'm Rhonda Rich. Is this on? Okay. I'm Vice President of the West Keizer Neighborhood Association, and I live in Keizer. And first of all, say good evening to all of you. And I wanted to mention thank you to Mike DeBlasi and Jamie Davis isn't here tonight, but thank you for attending our February last Thursday's meeting. Really appreciate you guys coming, taking the time. I know you probably have lots of meetings, but another meeting to go to, but it's great to have you there. So just to recap, at our January 20th meeting, I gave a presentation to you at your 20th meeting that focused on traffic safety concerns from West Keizer members. These concerns were voiced at the West Keizer Neighborhood Association January 13th meeting. I had given you a handout on those concerns, and if anybody needs one, I can get another one. This was part one of the WCNA's traffic safety campaign. It was gathering input from the members. Part two was held at last week's general meeting on February 10th, at which Chief Tig was invited to speak. There was good discussion about traffic safety concerns. We wrapped up the meeting with two proposals to present to you. We would hope that you would seriously consider these proposals as we as an association see them as improving the safety of our community. First, installing a stop sign at Dearborn and Shoreline for north-southbound traffic. This would slow down traffic traveling between Cummings Lane and Chamawa Road. Shoreline Drive is a long stretch of road, as you probably mostly know, that needs to be broken up to slow down traffic. It's similar to the street that parallels Shoreline, which is Delight Street to the east, which also has a stop at Dearborn Avenue. Secondly, and this is a little bigger ask, install a speed table at Cummings Lane and Delight Street to slow traffic going between River Road and Shoreline Drive. It will also slow traffic going by Cummings Elementary School. Chief Tig said that these two streets, Cummings Lane and Shoreline Drive, are streets where drivers historically speed and are a focus for law enforcement. Although he does not oversee engineering measures to slow traffic, that's the Public Works Department, he does endorse these two requests. We think that these are reasonable solutions to making these streets safer for our children and adults who walk and bike in our neighborhood, and that is why we're all here tonight. We ask that these requests be added to your near-term list of priorities for slowing down traffic in West Keizer to keep our neighborhood safe and prevent accidents. Thank you for your consideration.
The table, I didn't catch what you said.
Speed table.
A speed table at what street?
At Cummings and Delight Street.
Thank you.
And I know Delight Street doesn't line up at Cummings, but I figured that's something that traffic would figure out where. And Chief Tig was the one who suggested the speed table. And I know there's other means too, speed bumps and that, even though I looked it up, they're about $5,000 to $10,000 or maybe a little more. That's a lot better thing for the budget than widening Cummings and getting all the right of way. So that might be a fix that will help us get through the next, near future here. And then, and hopefully Cummings is somewhere on the queue down the road to have that widened and maybe put sidewalks and bike lanes. So,
Rhonda, do you know on the speed table that you saw the prices for, was that for the rubberized one or was that for like a concrete or asphalt one?
I don't know, I just kind of Googled speed tables and, and the cost of it, and that's what they said, so, yeah.
Hey, I know you can get rubberized ones that are pre-made, and I don't know all
That
the
miite be an easier
engineering part of it,
fix.
but I think you can bolt it into the asphalt somehow.
Yeah, Carol Phipps was going to come tonight, just kind of a side thing. At Fifth Avenue in front of Holiday Swim Club, we've asked to do some striping on the curb to not have parking during the summer when kids are there. And she mentioned about maybe temporary speed bumps, those rubberized ones, to put there during the summer to kind of slow, because Fifth Avenue is a cut-through straight too. But Shoreline, definitely, we know that is a long stretch. And Cummings, Chief Tig said when he was doing traffic tickets early on, that was just a place where they knew that, people are coming off River Road and they just speed right down there, and we've got the elementary school. So it's our main concern.
Hershey.
Cummings, instead, the school district isn't finished with their project at Cummings Elementary. That bond seems to be going. So my understanding is there's going to be some sidewalks. So anything that we recommend would, Public Works would probably need to work with the school district to match up with what their plans are.
Okay.
Because my understanding is they're going to be putting sidewalks in the front of the school and around the side. Hopefully they don't take the big tree out, but it's over by the big tree.
Right, the sidewalk was planned over by the big tree. Yeah.
So, and with the bond, they do things in phases, so.
Okay,
And
that would be a great thing to have sidewalks around, although
yeah.
the speed is the problem, I think, on Cummings that people, and I think Jamie mentioned this last time, and Carol Dorfler was involved with next door about the complaints of people speeding. So if you have something engineered there that slows traffic, that really is the best solution, so.
Any other questions?
Dearborn and Shoreline, I've almost got hit on the bike going up Shoreline, people going off of Dearborn, so I understand the issue there. I've learned over the years that stop signs aren't always the solution. Did you discuss anything about, not a roundabout, but a planter kind of things? It seems to have worked on Winter Street. Did you just discuss that?
No. And we're open if there's other solutions. I mean, we're not in the job of actually coming up with the solutions, but that sounded like the best solution and an easy fix to put up a stop sign. I know people will go through those, but.
There is speed through there. There's no doubt about it. I've been over at Carol's house and she was talking speeding and I looked right out and there we go.
Or are you thinking of Raffel and Shoreline maybe?
No, just all the
okay.
Shoreline. And then going on Thursday night, going for my rides, I've had people coming off of Dearborn just keep on going. So I know, I kind of support the idea. I don't know if stop signs are the right tool, but we need something.
Because that is the scenic bikeways.
It is on
Yeah.
the scenic bikeways. Yes, it is.
Just to be clear, you're talking about not like a big roundabout, but
No.
more of that kind of just a circle that's a planter circle
Yeah.
that's in the middle of the intersection.
Maybe I guess the closest one would be the one it's on private property, but inland shores.
Okay. I know I've seen one over by, is it Winter?
In Grant Elementary.
Yeah, that area, yeah.
We'd love to see one at Shoreline and Raffel. That is a big intersection there.
Yeah.
It is a huge.
Yeah,
yes.
and people come down off of Cummings and actually get their speed up about that spot too, so,
Okay.
okay, well,
Anything,
thank you.
Stephen, Rick, anything? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good evening. My name is Carolyn Holman. I'm the secretary of West Keizer Neighborhood Association, and I live on Sunset. Just wanted to add another thought from the meetings that we've had in January and February. Pedestrian issues came up at both of them. And because West Keizer is such a walkable neighborhood, you see a lot of people out walking, and really on Rivercrest, well, it starts on Willamette Drive, comes up through Wallace House Park, Rivercrest, all the way up past Sunset, and really walkers go all the way to Keizer Rapids Park. You see people walking their dogs there every day. It's like a super highway for people to walk, but there are no sidewalks. And so it was mentioned in February by neighbors that maybe we need to focus on pedestrian and biker safety because there are no sidewalks and because it is a problem to, I mean, frankly, people speed. People here have talked about it being just a perception. Well, we talked about the fact that the speed limit's 25, but really it's 33 miles an hour, because if you go 8 miles an hour over, even Chief Teague said, chances are you're not going to get a ticket. You're not going to be stopped. Now that's not 100%, but so if you're walking and you're thinking people should be driving 25 and they're driving 33, the perception probably is that they're going too fast, especially if you're walking and you're in the street. So we're talking people with dogs, kids in strollers, pedestrians, bike riders. So, and even at the January meeting, Councilor Smith was there, and she even offered to help get information on the city website if we were to get something going. And I know Hirsch has talked about a bike safety event in the summer, and be a good place to kind of get the ball rolling and get some information out. So, and there's a lot of sidewalks in West Keizer where people walk in the street too, because the sidewalks aren't in very good shape. So it's an issue, and I just want to keep attention on it. It was a very interesting discussion at both meetings, and I'd like to thank Mike and Jamie and also Chief Teague for helping out and participating as well. So thank you.
May 14th, bike skills.
May 14th.
Yeah, it's pretty much confirmed that
Got it.
we'll work with the police, whether it probably be in the afternoon here.
Here? Okay. Great.
One thing that I was just thinking as you were talking is, we have some of these streets that are wider and without sidewalks. If it's possible, some of you may have seen where they'll have the cars basically parked a little ways out, so they'll have like a bike lane protect between the sidewalk and the car parking. So I don't know if that's something we could do trial test runs on certain streets where we basically put have that strip. So it's not really a bike lane per se, but it's a strip with it, maybe even have a different color paint atop that between the strip and the lack of sidewalk. Forcing the cars to park, I guess, to the left of that strip, which allows people to walk in between the car and the strip. And I can't imagine, there is a cost to that, but if we do some test runs to see if it's even successful before we try doing miles of street.
I've seen a couple of those in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of freaky when you see it. It's like, what?
Well, I think there's even
The cars
something
are
like that in
parked
Salem,
outside,
too.
outside, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's safer that way, that's for sure, so.
Any other comments?
The only comment is that a lot of our streets, the right-of-way is so out of line because it was most of them were old county roads. And so where you'd want to put the line may be somebody's property.
It may be, but it's, I mean, if there's asphalt already on top of it,
But it still may be somebody's property. Because I know when I lived, my property was on Clark. I technically owned a part of that street.
so maybe Mike knows the answer to that then. When something like that's been asphalted, but it's really private property, is that the city get an easement on that or just a memorandum of agreement with the property owner?
Well, besides what Harris just said for his property, most things are just off. They're shifted one way or another. I don't know, there aren't too many circumstances where our public infrastructure, our streets built on private property, but like Hirsch mentioned, there are a few, so it's kind of far and few between, I think.
Okay. So if they are
It's possible.
Yeah. I mean, I think the more we test run things to see if they're worth doing on the cheap, the better end result we have, because then we've already tested something to see if it worked and we didn't spend a whole lot of money on it. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to assume that is the end of the interested citizens. So we'll move on to now the Safe Routes to School program application. Debbie has included the packet, or at least the application that's not the official application. This is I think you do it and then you can copy paste into the official one, but it's the deadline. So the one that oh, yes?
We're going to, Mikey has something that may make it question.
Okay.
Well, I was waiting to see where you were going before I interrupted.
That's all right.
So what you see, the way that goes, what you see in the packet is, first of all, there's a pre-application before you fill out this one, which is the final application, and Bill will be filling out the pre-app and turning that in prior to the deadline. And then those projects get scored, and how they're scored, then you find out if you can then fill out the formal application moving forward. So pre-app goes first, and then decide whether or not you are able to move forward to the next level, I guess, next round.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Has Bill mentioned locations where he's interested in, or?
Well, the one he's working on is Kennedy,
Okay.
and that one was submitted to the scouts also, and I think you guys were apprised of that one, and it didn't rank high enough, and so but he has that information from that one, which will transfer over to the pre-app he'll be filling out for the next one. And I'm not sure when that deadline is, but it is pretty soon, but he's on top of it all.
Okay, Hirsch? Sorry.
Yeah, Bill said he wanted a lot of stuff first week in March so he could get it in. And he's using a lot of the data from our first application on Kennedy, and including the walk-arounds and the visuals that were done. And he wants letters of support for it. And I've talked with the principal, and they's working on it. But the big thing is I talked to McCrae, Safe Routes School Coordinator, and she will be getting not only a letter of support from her, but from TJ, and I forgot his last name, he's head of transportation for the school district. Okay. So it'll go up to the cabinet level and we'll get a letter of support there. That area does not have a neighborhood association. However, the Southeast Neighborhood Association does have some few kids that do walk, and so Ken Gerloff is going to be doing a letter of support from Southeast. And I just got the name of the lady that came to our committee in August that lived on Keizer Road that wanted sidewalks. Her name was Tammy Coons. I'm going to go and contact her and get a letter of support. So we may have letters of support from, and the principal would, the PTA too. And so, or whatever it's called there. And then a neighborhood person, and then the Southeast Neighborhood Association. And if we can get TJ from the district, and that'll go into the packet.
Great. Well, that sounds really good. It sounds like getting
McCray was very excited about it because it was one of our first projects, and she was well aware of the need. And Kennedy is one of her schools, so.
Right, yeah.
And Bill was very, very positive about the application. The only downside to Kennedy is it, and Mike knows this, is the speed around there. When they do their judging, they look for higher speed areas. But we should put it in. The school district is starting their bond, one of their phases at Kennedy right now. So this may be tying in really nicely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is there anything in particular this committee can do to support or bolster this application?
Well, we'll probably want to do a letter of support too, don't you think?
I agree, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. Would we be doing that now with all these others, or for the, because that's just getting us in the list, right? That's not necessarily.
I think now's the time.
Okay, well, can I have any volunteers who would like to work on
And
writing?
Bill will do the process through city council
Mhm.
for the grant application, if he hasn't already done that.
Okay, would anyone like to volunteer writing up that letter?
I'm working on the
I'm volunteer first.
I'll do a draft.
I wasn't, yeah, I mean, anyone is fine.
He's the one that's been working on it.
Yeah.
I'll do a draft and run it by you and Jamie.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be great.
And is this something that as a committee we would have, given, what's the deadline on this?
18.
To bring back before the committee to approve and,
No, we wouldn't have time.
Well, do these letters go with this pre-app or
Mhm.
with the next step?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With the pre-app?
Now, we've never made it to the second round, so, but Bill has talked with ODOT already, and if there's something we need to do, he'll tell us. You know, if we need to show up with signs, we'll do it. But having the school district really behind it, especially at the higher level, not just the principal. However, Jesse is very, very, very transportation minded there, so.
So,
And I told McCray March 1.
okay. So Debbie, is it okay for her to write the letter, have you send it to all of us, and we just say yes or no, we like it, or?
Well, I'm gonna be gone after tomorrow, so.
Okay.
I think probably, maybe you could go through Bill, lawyer, you know, I mean, you could draft a letter, and it could be that Bill that might, I don't know what he would think, but, sorry.
Should do that. Yeah, I would say check with Bill lawyer and see if how that would work.
All right.
I can do that, check with Bill and then say what we've done so far, and does he need does he need a letter from the committee? I think last time we did one.
I can't remember.
I think we did.
I would, absolutely like to have one from us, just to show. Rick, you want?
Well, I was gonna say, we all trust Hearst's judgment. I was just wondering if we couldn't just make a motion or whatever and
Well,
pre-approve it, so
comfortable.
to speak.
Yeah,
I'd like to run it at least by the chairs there and just, you made me wording wise, I want to be careful, but the concept is this Safe Routes to School grant and the improvement of Keizer Road and the sidewalks for Kennedy Elementary that,
okay, yeah, so and I guess if everyone else is okay with it, then if could Hirsch just send it to the chair and me?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think the committee's okay with that, and as long as it's going to go to Bill Lawyer.
Oh, yeah,
then
it's-
I think that would work fine.
okay. Then we'll
and
do
Bill he may already have worked with the council for the approving for the grant process, so we're not jumping that step.
No, okay. All right, well, that sounds great.
And I'll keep track of the letters.
Okay. All right, well, then I won't belabor that anymore. So.
We may get this one. We really may get this
I
one.
really hope so. I think that would be awesome. Okay, so the next one was the LED flashing light project, and we'd like to, Jamie and I were talking about having a memo, and if you all recall what the flashing light sign looked like, it was just a speed limit sign that has flashing lights. It doesn't trigger by someone speeding or anything like that, it's just blinks.
Flashes all the time.
Yeah, I don't know if we can do a timer on that. I don't know if it would irritate the neighbors at 2:00 in the morning, but, anyway, one of the things, so I remember a while back, Sergeant Leday, you had found a price, and I can't remember if this is the same price I found recently, which was $899 per,
I believe it was just under 1,000.
okay,
That doesn't include the post,
sure.
and the mounting and such, but that would, the actual hardware itself.
Okay, so, I had some of the streets that we had talked about in the past, plus a few others, and I came up with a potential of up to 60, but we don't have to do, of course, all 60, because that is $54,000. So, I guess the memo we would like to present to the council, see if they support it, so then we could bring it to the budget committee to see if they could put it within the budget. I'd like to get some ideas from people to see if they have a street and number of signs that they are really in favor of.
Well,
Yes, sir?
based on what we've gotten testimony on, I would think we'd want shoreline.
Okay,
At least and we have a group that can help independently monitor it as far as giving us feedback on if its effectiveness or not effective. And that would be my suggestion for our very first one, to experiment.
okay. Yeah, I had shoreline, and I put Chemawa to Cummings. One of the things I was trying to consider of,
And then the other one would be Fifth.
yeah, right. Excuse me, what I was thinking of when I was coming up with the numbers per street segment was, obviously if someone's turning onto a street, we'll want them to see the sign there, and on the opposite end of that segment, same way. And then if there was a street coming into it, you'd want them, when they come onto the street there, to see a sign. So for shoreline, for instance, we would want at least 2.
Into for Fifth.
Okay,
That would be, I think we have to experiment. We have to be careful with our monies. And the budget committee, can say yay or nay, and they're going to be coming up here pretty quick. But even if it's a nay, I don't think it's a dead idea. We can keep it in our toolbox. But
so.
I would want to experiment first.
So, is there support then for me or Jamie to, or whomever's going to be at the next council meeting, to bring up to 4 these blinker lights on 2 on Shoreline and 2 on Fifth? Okay.
So you're taking the Shimala, is it coming one off?
Well, so we're on, I guess at this point, do we have to have a segment, do you think, when we're asking?
Well,
And should we have we consulted with the neighborhood associations on these to get their support?
Mhm.
Make sure that we've got that.
So if we did it for the West Keizer Neighborhood Association, the next council meeting is next Monday or Tuesday, because it's a holiday. But the West Keizer Neighborhood Association meeting would be after that, so we would have to ask them outside of their meeting, I don't know.
well, and then this is a budget consideration. The budget committee, trying to remember, late May.
Yeah,
I will tell you. It's going to be May 9th,
Oh,
and they're not sure it was the 12th, but I think they're going to change it to the 10th, 9th and 10th.
9th and 10th. I'm on the budget committee, by the way.
Okay.
So,
okay, well, we got one vote.
so, well, you get in deliberations and you know, but yes, I think experimenting with the concept is good, as long as we keep the money low.
Right, so if we had,
And as long as as Steve mentioned, as long as we have support of the neighborhood.
right. If you don't mind, when is your next neighborhood association meeting?
It's the second Thursday of the month.
March 10th. So we could conceivably go to that neighborhood association meeting, ask for their support, and then bring it to the following council meeting, ask for the council support, and then have it ready for budget committee, if we got support from everybody.
Are you talking about, I'm sorry, putting it at the stop sign, a new stop sign?
No, these are speed limit signs, and they have the LED flashers on them, yeah.
Okay, not stop signs.
Yeah. Okay, well, then, do I have support for one of us to go to that West Keizer Neighborhood Association meeting to ask? Or Jamie?
Either one.
Yeah. Well, there's a question I'm gonna have about neighborhood associations in a little bit, so I won't jump the gun on that, but, yes, Rick?
Hirsch's used the word experiment a couple times, and it seemed to me like if we put some of these in somewhere, that we ought to do some kind of speed monitoring both before and after to see if it does make any difference.
When we're spending money, and I always like, granted, I'm an old state manager. You got to be careful on how you spend money. If it's effective, we can spend more. But if it's just window dressing and there's no change, let's not spend money. Let's think of something else. I've read the literature on those and seen other cities use them, but would it work on Shoreline? I know they're speeding on Shoreline. Would it affect?
Yes.
Thank you, Vice Chair Michael. One of the things that the council will ask you, I can almost guarantee, is if you put that on right before your property and it was flashing 24/7, would that be a nuisance to you?
And I can't say I've ever actually seen them in real life, so I don't know how offensive it is.
But I'm going to guarantee you that'll be a question that will be asked.
Yeah, so, that will be something I'll have to see if I can figure out a city that might have something like this and ask them if they've had concerns with that.
I can just say, I guarantee that will be asked.
Okay. Sergeant Lede, do you know of any other? Do you know of any cities that have, around here that have these that we could ask their experience?
I want to say I know up in the Portland metropolitan area, like Oregon City, I believe, has some different areas that I've seen those in. I thought Albany actually had a couple of different placements, might have been Corvallis. I mean, when we went over this several months ago, I think we gave you the top 5 areas. I know you just shot to Shoreline right now, but I hope you revert back to that list that we had talked about. It might give you a little bit more ammunition as far as speaking with the council, because that goes back into research that we actually put staff time into.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, is whether any of the places we're proposing have been covered by these existing speed studies.
Yeah, well, so I was looking for that list. I know I have it somewhere in my folder here. I had a total of 12 streets. I'm pretty sure McLeod was one of them, one of your streets.
I believe Dearborn and McLeod were actually, I believe, at least in the top 3 off the top of my head.
And so it's, that would be a different neighborhood association. And that would be, we could ask for, I suppose, 2 more, or
Dearborn is still West Keizer.
Dearborn is, yeah.
Yeah.
The McLeod one is the one I was thinking.
That's Gupser. Yeah.
Gupser, yeah.
And those are areas that we do have illuminated street lighting and things, that it wouldn't just be a completely darkened area that you're getting, 100 yards of reflection potentially going into a residence and things like that too, so.
Okay, so let's back up for a second then. Do we still support our first 2 ideas of Shoreline and Fifth, or do we want to do one of the ones like Shoreline, because it is a concern, and maybe Dearborn or McLeod?
Or perhaps do 3.
Or do
if we want to do Shoreline, but making sure that we have at least 1 and possibly 2 where we have data that we can compare before and after to see if they are actually having the desired effect of moderating speeds.
Okay, so
Yeah, that makes Steve's, I appreciate Steve's, and I do appreciate Sergeant Lede's comment that council does want to see data,
yeah. So
and rightly so. I'm not putting it down for that, but
So what
I
is
still think, West Keizer needs some experimentation for this.
So what, are we settling on 3 then? And the 3 will be Shoreline, Dearborn, and McLeod?
As long as we got data.
Okay.
Yes, at least propose 3, and then maybe we don't get 3, maybe we get more than 3.
Yeah. Okay. Well then, someone will have to talk to the Gupser neighborhood, and someone will have to talk to the West Keizer Neighborhood Association. But Gupser's is the second Tuesday of the month.
I can do that.
Okay. All right, great. And so,
I'll have to check with my social secretary to make sure.
we'll pay her off.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Next thing. So the street painting, I'm not sure how you got roped into it, Hirsch, but
I thought you were doing it.
yeah, it was my idea. And so I actually did talk with Corey from the chamber. And like a good delegator, she delegated a lot of work to me. So I've got a lot of people to call. And so that's my first step that I'll be doing, is calling potential potential sponsors, potential sources of paint. She said at the moment, they haven't decided yet, but they will soon where it will be this year. Still be in August, but there's a possibility that it wouldn't be on Cherry. So that could affect it in the manner of exactly where we wanted to put it and size-wise too, I imagine. But I thought at least we have forward momentum on it. Obviously, we don't want whatever design or theme we have would not be something that we want to feel, make people feel unwelcome with. So nothing political, nothing too controversial. She made a good suggestion that it is the 40th anniversary of our city. And so maybe put in some 80s theme into it. I don't know. But
November 1982.
yeah. So we could put Knight Rider in it or something like that. So just that's my update on that. Just that I've got a number of people to call to see where the help will come from. And Hirsch, if you do want to help, you're more than welcome. Or, oh yes, Ken.
I'm Vice Chair DePlazzi. One of the things that you may want to consider is having some kind of a contest about the birthday of Keizer, 40th anniversary of Keizer, as part of your presentation, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, like just an overall design contest, yeah.
I have Keizer's first New Year's baby. So she's the same age as Keizer.
Okay, well,
I know, it does, doesn't it?
we could have her in the painting as a baby and as an adult.
She may not go for that.
Okay. All right. Well, good. So.
And I can help anyway.
Okay. Or well, anyone else. I don't want Hirsch to be the only one helping.
Especially if they decide moving it from Cherry, then we might have to look at different things.
Yeah.
But I'm glad they moved it from May. That opens up the bike skills thing.
Yeah. Okay, so the next thing is the speed study, and at the last meeting, Sergeant Leday brought a nice thick packet of data. I wanted to not overwhelm you with the data, so what I did, I have a little Excel graph and spreadsheet. What I have here is the streets, where they were, the studies were, the speed limits that are posted on those streets, the percent of vehicles that were driving under the speed limit, percent driving over the average speed, and then the 85th percentile, and then I graphed it down there. So the two that are good, if you will, for driving under the speed limit, or I guess the one is Verda. The two that are problem streets would be Harmony and Dearborn, where we have 33% and 37% respectively driving under the speed limit. Now the average speed on those are only 2 miles an hour over the speed limit, but the 85th percentile is 32 miles an hour. So that's where, I can't remember if it was Carolyn or Rhonda mentioning, there's the speed limit, and then there's, the fudge factor, because no radar is so great that, and no speedometer is so accurate that someone might be going faster and just not realize it. But the point of what I was trying to present here is, there's a lot of people who say there's people who are speeding on our streets, and there's speeding, and then there's the feeling of people speeding. And if it's in your neighborhood, it can feel much more offensive, I guess, if you will. But what I'm thinking here is, yeah, there are streets where people are driving, a lot of people are driving below the speed limit or driving very close even if they are going, but in my mind, aside from the design argument of the street, I think most people would be happy if most people drove very close to the speed limit. So, again, my point is, when we think about street design in the future and any speed taming methods we put, I think we should be, in my mind, again, the goal is to get 85% of the people driving at the speed limit, not 50%. So, any thoughts on that?
You're right on. You're right on.
Nope, I agree with that.
Yes, right?
Well, for way back when I started my ODOT career, I started doing speed zone investigations. The 85% is a criteria that's been used across the country forever.
Yep.
That theoretically, that's the speed that the reasonable, safe driver drives. That there's always going to be 15% that are going to be over and above that. So I just kind of wanted to explain why the 85% thing is important. Looking through this, a couple of things that shocked me was like, I think on Harmony, there was one driver that was going 84 miles an hour. I mean, there was a little bit of that sprinkled through on all the streets. Hard to believe that somebody would be doing that.
Yeah, and I didn't want to depict the crazy extremes because there's always going to be somebody who's going to just test their ability to go super fast, or there's a reason why maybe they're behind a bus and so the speed limit they were going slow but there, or they were looking for an address so they were driving slow. So I thought I'd just, understanding that of course the averages include those extremes, but I was trying my best to not make people think that, it's common for people to do that kind of speed on the streets.
And in all fairness, equipment that's not being monitored, we do have what's called anomalies, especially when we talk about radar. That's why we have to have an operator that's monitoring radar the entire time and actually watching what it's actually tracking. So there's a tracking history when we actually go out and do speed enforcement. So the unit that we're operating also utilizes radar. And so we can have some anomalies because it's an unmanned stationary unit at the time.
Yeah.
So it's not a reader board or anything else. So to say that we had somebody doing 86 miles an hour in a 25 zone on a specific area, I'd find it very difficult for an acceleration factor to say, yeah, that happened. So I'd have to count something like that as probably an anomaly. But I can't say 100% it's not.
Right.
So I don't want people to think that, yeah, we have somebody almost doing 100 miles an hour in a 25 zone either.
Right. Yes, sir.
Sergeant Lede, I did have a question too, is setting that out there and people seeing it, that's probably going to bring the speed across the board down a little bit?
If we had a unit that people were seeing, I would say absolutely you would be correct. This isn't something that people see.
Oh, okay, so this isn't one of the trailers? Oh, okay, all right. That answers that.
So we're getting a true unknown factor when we're getting these measurements.
Okay.
So it's not being affected by vision or anything else.
So what I hope to come out of this data is, as we're looking at street projects on these streets, because that's where we have the data, if there are traffic calming measures that we can try to try them and get more people, the bulk of the people driving on the street driving at the speed limit. So I want to thank you again for bringing that data to us.
Absolutely. And I think another thing that's important to bring up is involved in every one of these speed studies that we do. So when we get high complaint areas, we'll go out and we'll do a speed study as far as what our unit is looking for. And during these studies, we actually get specific times to where when we look at our average speeds are dang near right along that speed limit. So some of the vehicles that actually bring, where we're talking about those higher numbers, we actually have times that are blocked together with it.
Yeah.
So there's certain times of the day that we actually have a majority of those speeds, and that allows me to actually implement our guys and go out during specific times, specific locations, to be as effective as we possibly can.
Yeah, yeah, and I did notice that, and I thought about trying to incorporate it into here, but I didn't want to get too busy. You know, I didn't want to make it look like a Rorschach test.
And that's what I've talked about over the past as far as our data-driven enforcement.
You know. Okay, well, thank you again, and any other questions on this? Okay. All right, so now back to you, Hirsch, with the bike skills fair report.
We tentatively scheduled, well, it's going to be May 14th. I'd like to start at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Like to arrange a meeting with the police department in the next couple weeks. So Officer Sergeant Leday, could you check your schedule? And then we'll plan a bike skills event, and I think would be best here. And we'd like to pattern it after the Safe Routes to School ones, in that we would have a brief instruction, maybe a classroom, or if the weather's nice, we could do it outside. And then the kids would come out and actually ride a route. I have all the stop signs, and we'd have to get tons of duct tape because we use the duct tape to create streets for the kids. And then, if possible, how the police cadets or the police take them for a very short, safe bike ride as kind of a reward. Salem Police has done that with us at Chavez. We thought that might work here. And I think by the March meeting, I'll have really specific details, maybe even where we're going to have it on campus after we meet. Mike, you said we had about $500 in the helmet account. And I think we have plenty of helmets because we'll have helmet fitting too. Because with COVID, we really haven't gotten much out there. And we did have a pretty good size order early last year, so we got plenty of helmets. But based on some testimony over the last few months about lighting, I would like to buy some of these or find a source for some of these little flasher lights.
Do those go on the helmets or on the bike?
They can go anywhere.
Oh, okay.
In fact, walkers can use it. This one I got from Transit, so I will ask Transit if they could give us a supply. If not, I'd like to see if I can buy a few from a vendor to give out and do that. You know, because I've heard, everybody's walking in the dark, and I have to admit that's true. And few of these, I know these aren't very expensive. I know David Dempster, a few years ago, when True Value was still here, they bought some really nice flasher units, but I'm afraid those are probably pretty expensive now. These are kind of, but they fit anywhere.
Right.
So I'll pursue that and then come back in March and probably have some more details on that. So we'll have the bike skills fair with some instruction. We'll have all the Heidi Manlove from ODOT will provide us with all the newest literature and stuff from on bike safety for parents and stuff. We'll have the class. We'll have the skills fair, a bike ride, helmet fitting if need be. We'll have these. The other thing that I'm going to have to work on is an old idea, is some evening have an adult training class on bicycles. I have an old lesson plan that I need to rework and come back to the committee and see if that might be possible some evening or weekend. It wouldn't have to, say, involve the police, but it, just basic rules of the road, how to ride in a group, maybe how to change a flat, those kind of things. And we have resources to be able to do that. We just haven't been able to do it. So, but first we will, May 14th.
Okay. And where is that again?
It's going to be right here, City Hall, whether it's a side lot or maybe even in the police area, I don't know. We'll work that out.
Okay, great.
And having it all nailed down in March, we can start the advertising in, Keizer Times, through our website, neighborhood associations, etc.
Just go right through the skate park.
Exactly. Yeah, we could.
The fountain won't be on yet either.
May, I don't know.
I don't think they turn on that early.
Yeah, that's still
chilly.
Still chilly.
Might rain.
So, and with COVID and everything, I think we're going to be just great for it. So it's going to be good timing. And I really do thank the chamber for thinking about August for the Iris Festival, because I never want to conflict with the Iris Festival. And McCrae is all on board with it, so she can help from the Safe Routes to School portion. So
Yeah.
get a few kids here and parents. So, and I know Rhonda's already said that the West Keizer would step up and help a little bit. And so we do need a few volunteers.
Okay. Well, I guess when you advertise, ask for people.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that sounds great. The next one is the planning commission report. Jamie's not here, so I don't know. I don't have anything for that.
It's basically just a continuation of the month before. They're working on the House Bill 2000 and Senate Bill 5358 or something. Anyway.
Okay.
What I reported last month.
Yeah, same, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the next is committee member input, and start with you, Stephen.
Just a couple of things. One, first at the request of Chair Davis, I attended a webinar put on by PSU's Traffic Research and Education Center on reckoning with induced vehicle travel. This was presented by Jamie Volker of the University of California at Davis's National Center for Sustainable Transportation. And the main takeaways of this thing were that, one, the usual way of dealing with traffic congestion is to add lanes. And that the problem is that in the short term that can ease congestion, but then the availability of additional traffic availability induces more traffic, either by people who weren't traveling before or by people who see it now as a more appealing place to arrive. And so that within about 10 years, your elasticity, as they call it, is about zero. You reach the same level of congestion that you had before. And one of the main focuses of Volker's talk was that the environmental impacts of this increased vehicle traffic are often not taken into account in the planning stages of these projects. And so that what they are promoting is greater sensitivity on the part of state DOTs to look at, well, what are the environmental impacts? And both the UC Davis and the Rocky Mountain Institute have developed tools to try to help calculate, well, what is the environmental load that's coming into this. California's DOT has adopted the tool that they've developed to calculate that environmental impact, and they're really trying to get other states to do the same thing. I don't know to what extent Oregon has done that yet or not, but the idea that you're throwing a lot more CO2 and other pollutants into the environment is something that needs to be taken into account. They also are looking to try to determine how these projects impact lower income and minority neighborhoods disproportionately to other neighborhoods. That's just something that's going to require more study. And anybody who's interested in this, the slides and a recording of the presentation are available on the TREC website, so that's there. The other thing is that Jamie also asked that we look at the training for commission members, and a lot of that, it was funny because that's exactly the same kind of training I used to give to state agencies back in my previous life. But the one thing, a lot of it had to do with public records, public meetings, state ethics, and the one thing that I think stuck out to me was we always need to be mindful about particularly making sure that email communications, particularly between committee members, are available. And so my recommendation would just be to make sure that anytime you're communicating with another member through email about committee business, that we make sure that we copy Deb on it so that it ends up in the city servers.
Like the letter that I'm going to do, make sure she gets a copy.
Exactly. So that all of that
Thank you,
things,
Steve.
so that we comply with the public records retention requirements. And those were the things that I had on my mind.
Okay, thank you. Only thing I have is, and this is kind of related to what Jamie and I did the other night with Wes Keizer. So we were originally thinking, well, every month we can have a member of the committee attend neighborhood association. And so then we were thinking, okay, well, we know who lives in Gubser, we know who lives in Southeast, but we didn't know of the rest of us who live in the West Keizer Neighborhood Association. Do either of you? And do we know if the new member does?
I don't know.
Okay, do you know? So, just to kind of split up the workload of attending these meetings. And the other thing that came up too was maybe it's not something we need to attend every neighborhood association meeting. We could attend as requested, or, they can send us a note and say, hey, we're going to be talking about a traffic safety issue this month. We'd really like someone to come. And ideally, if you were in that neighborhood, you could go, and if you couldn't, you would ask one of the other committee members to go in your place.
That makes the most sense to me, that one, if they are going to be discussing a subject that might be of interest to us, or if we want to solicit their input, we can communicate with them to make sure that we get invited or invite ourselves or something to the meeting.
Okay. Well, so that being said, then I guess we'd have to do a round robin of people going to the West Keizer Neighborhood Association. But, that's fine. Okay, and then the other thing we talked about, Jamie and I talked about too, is with like the planning commission reports or any of these committee meetings that we might go to. They're dealing right now with something that is really not relevant to our committee. So I know they meet last night, right? Or last week.
They meet on the second Wednesday of each month. It moves around sometimes.
So I don't know how we would want to just leave it up to whomever's on the list for the next time to go to the commission meeting, and just say, hey, just keep an eye and see if there really is something we need to know about. And if there isn't, then it's like jury duty. You showed up and you weren't asked, and you move on.
I think, right now I send everybody the packets, so you can see from that, that the idea of doing that was so that you could look and like seeing that what they're discussing this next time is not really relevant, so you
Yeah.
wouldn't have to attend, but that gives you that information
Right.
a week ahead of time.
So it's not something that you have to do if you're on, like Stephen, you're on for planning commission. Council, I would recommend we always do that just because we're going to report to them what we're doing. But planning commission is as needed. And that's all I got. Rick?
Everything.
Okay. Hirsch?
Speaking of neighborhood associations, I'm in I and several people in my new neighborhood, we are meeting next week to start the process to form a neighborhood association in the northwest Keizer area. So I'll be attending those neighborhood association meetings. We have to go through the steps, and the people, you need at least 3 people to get it started. And I have Marlene Parsons and Jonathan Thompson, we're all neighbors. So we're going to meet next week and get the process started. Then, of course, it has to go through city council for approval. So we'll be doing that process.
And the boundary of that, would that go all the
That's
way
what I was
up
gonna ask,
to?
yeah.
I have to
north?
double check, but it includes, inland shores. Basically, West Keizer is south of Chamawa Road. We're north of River Road, which includes McNary High School area, McNary Estates.
Would it all the way up to Clear Lake too, or no?
I don't think it goes that far. I think there's another one out there. But Tracy's and Debbie sent us some stuff to get it started, so.
Okay. Well, we will keep an ear out to see.
So
how
there'll
that
be
goes.
another neighborhood association in the somewhat near future.
Okay. All right, well, now we will move on to our staff report. Mike?
Thank you, Vice Chair DeBossy. A couple things. Joco Construction Company was awarded the contract for our upcoming ADA ramps, which those are in lieu of the resurfacing this summer. And the pre-con for that is next Thursday, and the work for those ramps will start shortly after that. I think there's 32 of them, and they'll just get in there and get them replaced and get ready for the next phase. In that will be AKS is putting bids out the end of this month for the resurfacing project. There is a little over 2 miles that we're resurfacing this summer, and those bids will go out at the end of this month. And again, that'll be for paving to start after July 1. So we don't have dates on when because we don't have a contractor and know that yet. So we'll know that shortly. In the stormwater world, our guys are just busy doing storm repairs around town. We have a TV contractor that inspects our lines, and then we go through and we get notebooks and we review those, and from those we find repairs that need to be made. So we focus on those and go about and systematically take care of those. So they're busy doing that. And
So when you do the repaving, do they kind of grind down a little ways? And
it depends upon the street and the application that it was designed for. Sometimes they'll curb grind along the gutter. If there's curb and gutter, and they'll come out, they'll go 2 inches, and then 6 feet out down to 0, and that'll be so you don't lose your curb over time. So if you drive around Keizer and you see like 4-inch curbs, that's because we've resurfaced over the years, and it gets to a point where the curb starts to disappear. So we'll grind off the sides and then overlay over that way the curb stays the same width. And then there's inlays we do, and there's various types of things depending upon the road structure that's there. We did a bunch of dig outs here on Windsor Island Road here a few months back because there were a lot of poor areas, and we're going to be paving that. So we went in there, contracted that out to have that repair work done prior to paving because there were a lot of poor spots right now. So
the repaving, where is that happening?
where?
Yeah.
Various 2 miles, various areas
Oh,
around
okay.
Keizer, from Gupser neighborhood to down south off of Cherry to little stretch of shoreline, kind of bounce around.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You bet.
Sergeant Leday.
Currently, nothing to report at this time. Unfortunately, what our goals are is to lower fatal crashes, and I'm sure you all had heard we had a double fatal that had occurred just last month, very tragic. It's kept my unit very busy as far as doing follow-up on it, but that case is still under investigation. And so I guess the only positive thing out of it is it wasn't something that our engineering or anything else could have prevented at the time.
Yeah, this is a tragedy. Okay, well, we will have our council liaison report.
Thank you, Vice Chair DeBlasi. DeBlasi, I didn't even say that right. Sorry, I can't talk with this thing on. I just wanted to say it was a pleasure to be here tonight as Counselor Smith. She had surgery today and is kind of laid up, and so she asked if I would be willing to do that, so I'm here, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm excited to hear about the bike skills thing coming up, and we'll get some advertisement done on that, some different ways. And it was interesting for me to go through the traffic study and look at all the different things. For you to bring that and share that with all of us, sorry, that was great. Thank you. Because that tells us a lot. It tells us that we're really not nearly as bad a shape as we hear we are most of the time. And so that was very enlightening. And then did Chair Jamie talk to all of you about doing the committee training online?
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to spend a little bit of time with her and do some chair training. And I was excited to go, I did the chair training with her. Now I get to go see how it worked. Man, oh well, next month maybe. But I'm excited about that and excited about some of the new trainings that are happening. So I appreciate all the work that's done. I look at this last few days, we've been interviewing potential city managers, and it's been interesting to work with and see a lot of the city employees that I don't always get to see, and I appreciate all the time and effort that they put in on that. And we'll see. There should be an announcement in the next couple of days on what happens with that. But thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for coming tonight. Okay, so getting back to something I was talking about before, looks like, Stephen, you'll be the attending the council meeting and, if necessary, the planning commission. So, with that being said, and no other things to say, I will adjourn the meeting.